Welcome back to Mighty Switch Force 2. Before we continue on, there are a few things I want to talk about, one of which being the absolutely delectable music. It's just, this game, if it didn't already catch you with its platforming, with its puzzle solving, if you just sit here and listen to the music, I'm going to put a link to the OST down below, actually, the more I think about it, because pretty much every single song in this game is real good. I like Dalmatian Station, I think is what it's called. That's a really good one. I also like the main theme, Rescue Girl. Whether or not it has lyrics or not is, I mean, I like both versions, so that doesn't matter. But there's a lot of really good music I love in this game. And a perfect example of that is actually the music you hear when you are on this level select screen. So I'm going to shut up for a second and let you listen. That's enough, because there is also one more thing I want to talk about on this level select screen before we continue on into Incident 5, that being the part times. You'll notice that if you look at the bottom left, there will be a best time. I don't know if I'm really tired, and I feel like I'm saying every single word that's coming out of my mouth wrong. I don't know. We'll see how this turns out. But there's a best time, which is the time that I have on the stage. It's my best time on that stage. And then there's the part time. I'm going to hop into Incident 1 very quickly and show you what a part time is. A part time is just you running through a level as fast as humanly possible and trying to get a time that is under the part time. This does literally nothing for you. I'm not even joking. It does absolutely nothing for you. But it's there for speedrunners and people who want to run through this game as fast as possible. And I think it's kind of fun to go for part time sometimes. But there's really nothing you unlock for getting them all, so I don't feel much of a drive to do it. So I'm not going to be getting them in this playthrough. I just don't think it's worth it. So, wow, I'm sucking a lot, but hey, that's fine. That's really fine. And I'm also not going to get this part-time, I don't think. So this was a terrible way to show off a part-time. But once I do get the part-time, I will show off exactly what happens when you get it. Because it's, I guess, worth showing off. I guess. And, since nothing is going on, here's a comment from Titanium Star, who loves you very much.
You know, my friend, perhaps nothing is happening right now, but I'd like to take this moment to express my gratitude. I appreciate everything that you do, and I applaud you for making it this far in life. You're a fantastic individual, and I encourage you to do whatever it is that you aspire to do. Anyways, I'm glad you're here right now, here for the full experience. You being present is what makes this entire process worthwhile. You don't know the full extent of how much that means to me, for when I say this, I really do mean it. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, I'm getting that part-time. Perfect. And there's the part-time. That wasn't hard at all. I was just being an idiot the first time I tried it. So, once you get a part-time on a level, it's, drumroll, a star next to the level. That's it. Let's move on to Incident 5. There was no real reason to show that off. Well, show it off now because there wouldn't necessarily be a great point to show that off later, to my knowledge. So hey, whatever. Part times were shown off just then. Honestly, there probably would have been a better time to show that off because I'm still not quite sure how I'm going to structure the last few episodes of this series. And we're kind of actually fast approaching those because this game is almost done even though I'm only on the 5th level. Yep, this game's a quickie. It's a real quickin'. So, I don't know, we'll see. I might have to think of what to do with those episodes on the spot, but I don't know. Whatever. That's for a later date. I love procrastinating. I'm going to push it back as far as possible. Anyway, there is a completely new mechanic that has shown up in this level. They are the pipe blocks. I might as well actually hop back down here to show off what they do. they redirect your liquid. I don't know, I was trying to say the water that's coming from your hose, and then I just forgot what I was trying to say, so it just didn't come out how I planned. But it redirects the water that's coming out of your hose and makes it go in certain directions. I'm gonna be honest with you, this level doesn't do super interesting stuff with that mechanic just yet, but interesting things will happen with it later. The most interesting thing here was having to worry about a pinky, and timing your water presses, or your button presses correctly so that the water would reach the pinky's mouth before he ran into something turned around, and, well, you didn't end up getting the, Hooligan Sister, is the name I was trying to think of. So that's pretty much the only interesting thing they do with this mechanic throughout this entire level. The rest of it is just kind of a basic, hey, here's how this works. It's kind of a tutorial level in that sense. But we will get more interesting things with it later on down the line. This isn't a one-and-done type deal. It is a pretty big mechanic and a really, really good use of the new water hose. Because back in Mighty Switch Force 1, you had kind of a, I think it was a stun gun if I remember correctly. And one of the big changes that came in Patricia Wagon's life when she became a firefighter was the fact that she lost that stun gun. She doesn't have it now. I also just messed this up. I'm gonna have to replay this level. And, yeah, that's perfectly fine, because I still have plenty of time to talk about this. But, instead of having a stun gun, she now has a hose, and that allows for you to spray water into those pipes, and it's something that was completely impossible to do in Mighty Switch Force 1. So I just really like the fact that they take this new mechanic that makes this game different, and they do a lot of interesting stuff with it. I don't know. There's actually a third Mighty Switch Force game, which I have yet to talk about. I didn't talk about it in the kind of quick history sum-up thing I did in the first episode. And that's Mighty Switch Force Academy. I've heard it is Mighty Switch Force 1, and that's pretty much it. And the reason I say this, and I bring that up, is because Mighty Switch Force 2, I just talked about how innovative it was, comparatively to the first game, and how many new and interesting things it did. I've heard a lot of negatives about Mighty Switch Force Academy. Not because it's necessarily a bad game, it's just that it doesn't do anything, really. Mighty Switch Force 2 is a perfect example of how to take the basic mechanics of a game and do something interesting enough to the point where it feels like a new game. And Mighty Switch Force Academy is a perfect example of what no one asked for. So, that's what I've heard at least. Don't quote me on that. But, actually, right here you'll notice that I have been avoiding spraying down this mud block. The reason for that being, you see an ugly secret baby right up there, a USB right up there. And if you spray away that mud block, you will be incapable of getting that ugly secret baby. This is the first example of a time where if you get rid of a mud block, the ugly secret baby is completely unobtainable. Again, I've already talked about why I don't particularly like that. You know, you're not necessarily going to know exactly what mud blocks you need to get rid of and which mud blocks you don't need to get rid of off the bat. It's kind of a bad mechanic in my opinion. But it's fine, it doesn't appear that much. This is one of the few times it actually does appear in this game. So I'm not going to harp on it too much, because there's no real point. It doesn't happen too much, I shouldn't harp on it too much. I'm going to cut to the end of this video, or not the end of this video, wow. Ooh, that was a real good commentary mistake there, good job. I'm going to cut to the end of this level, and I'll meet you back on the level select screen. Let's move on to Incident 6. This is a perfect example of a level which can be beaten very, very quickly. Whether or not I'm actually going to succeed in doing that is a different story, but it is pretty easy to beat this level very quickly. It's actually a lot of fun to speedrun. I've gotten it done in about 26 seconds before on complete and total accident. I didn't mean to, but hey, it happened, and I'm going to take full credit of that. But yeah, this is a really, really, really good example of how levels are beaten really, really quickly. And a lot of the time, even if you're going for the ugly secret baby, these things are done in minutes at most. At most. As you can see, it's only been around 40 seconds, and I'm done. That's the end of the level. It's just, I don't know. I love this game a lot, but one of the only complaints, and one of the complaints that a lot of reviewers had about this game was that the levels were so short. The game itself is really short, and I love it. I just wish there was more done with it. You know, that was also a good level to explain launch blocks, because there were a lot of them. There were quite a lot of them, and there are a lot of instances where they're used just like that again and again, so I'll explain more about that later once we get to those instances, but more importantly, a new mechanic. You'll notice that I'm standing on the red block right now, which looks like it's locked into place, because it is locked into place. If you are not standing on these colored blocks, you'll notice that they are green. These can be switched into the background and the foreground. But if you stand on one of the blocks, they will switch to being red. They're locked into place and will not move into the background or the foreground. They will stay within the foreground. They will never move into the background. You can see how this will be used in very interesting ways in both puzzles and in platforming. That's a pretty basic platforming challenge, but trust me, they get a little bit crazier later on. You'll see what I mean. This is, again, kind of a tutorial level for this mechanic. A lot of mechanics that are used and then kind of dropped in the next level will be brought back later, and they will be used to an extent beyond belief, and it'll be used very interestingly. Trust me, I swear, it's really, really cool, actually. And what else is cool is that enemy that I just killed. I'm gonna call him T-Rex. His name's gonna be, actually, I'll call him Rex. His name's gonna be Rex. That's a real cute name. I'm gonna call him Rex. Now let's see. That was actually a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. I thought I was in a different area. That is wrong. I was thinking about the ugly secret baby, because the ugly... That was a little ugly. That platforming was really ugly, actually. But the ugly secret baby in this level gives me a little bit of trouble. It really shouldn't, but it does, and it kind of makes me sad. So we'll see when I get there. But right now you're seeing really, really basic mechanical use of this, and we'll get into more interesting things again later. But just know, I think this is actually kind of an interesting use of it. If you hop down in here and you have one of the blocks activated but not both of them, that can get a little bit tricky to get out of. It actually can get kind of annoying because you're going to be like stuck in, I don't know, I'm doing a bad job of it. I might as well show it off actually instead of trying to explain it, since explaining isn't apparently my forte. So let's just hop back in there one more time. Last level was short, so I can get away with doing this a little bit. So if you hop down in here, that was a bad mistake. If you hop in like here and then you press this button, you're kind of a little, no, not actually. I'm just dumb. I think when I'm dumb. Oh, if you try to, this is what I was thinking about. If you try to leave this area when you don't have both of the, or when you have both of the blocks activated, it can get a little bit tricky. You have to do a little bit of a real quick jump, a real quick hop, and then press the button to make sure you're not on top of it. I don't know. I don't know why I felt the need to bring that up. It's because I get stuck with that relatively consistently, despite the fact that it's a really easy puzzle. But whatever. Rexes can be thrown into the foreground like pretty much any other enemy. There's an animation for certain enemies being thrown into the foreground. For example, you just saw that Rex got shoved into the foreground. He had a completely different sprite for being shoved into the foreground. But some enemies don't have that. I think what happens, and this is purely hypothetical because I'm going based upon the first game, the first Mighty Switch Force game, when an enemy is killed in a way that, you know, they don't have a specific sprite dedicated to. They just kind of flip out. Not like freak out as in they didn't program it correctly. It's more of a flip out as in like they just get shoved into the foreground and spin around without any special effects going on. So some enemies, when they are shoved into the foreground, have their own special animation, whereas some just don't. I think the bats are an example of that. They just don't have an animation for them being shoved into the foreground because it's so unlikely for it to happen that, you know, you just don't see it very often. They didn't make one because it's so unlikely to happen. That's what I was trying to say. Oof, I'm such a genius. I'm a wordsmith if I've ever seen one. I think I've made that joke before. I'm a wordsmith and I'm original. Joy. But yep, that was a really interesting mechanic that was used pretty simply there, and it'll get more interesting later on. Something I've said about 3 times at this point. I think I'm right on that, trust me.
Let's go. Hot enough for ya?
So, something I want to talk about in this level are 2 things. First of all, a completely new type of block. These are furnace blocks. They can be put out with your water, but they will catch back on fire in an extremely short amount of time. There's a really short time window in which they are not on fire. I think it's also important to mention that Patricia Wagon's shots actually have a bit of a, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Oof, I know this word. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Drop off. They have a bit of a drop off. I don't know why that was so hard for me to think of. So you'll notice that this is me holding down the Y button as much as I possibly can. I'm just holding it down, and Patricia Wagon's water shoots out all the way. But if I let go of it, it'll kind of drag back in. It won't immediately stop, and the arc won't stay the same. It kind of slowly comes back to me, kind of like, you know, actual water. So there's this drop off of her shots. This can get kind of important, especially when platforming, because if this catches on fire, I want to barely tap the button in order to make that furnace, you know, safe for me to go on. Because if I just sit there and hold the button, the water is going to go straight over the furnace. So what I want to do is be a little bit careful about it and use the drop off of her shots in order to, I don't know, make the furnaces not be on fire. If that makes any sense. Hopefully that made sense. I tried to explain that the best I could. So yeah, that's pretty simple stuff. This is actually a perfect example of when you're going to have to get used to it, because right now you're just seeing that I'm just spraying the Hooligan Sister. But what I want to do is make the drop of the shot hit the furnace there. It's pretty simple stuff. Don't worry about it too much. It's pretty basic. It might sound a little bit complicated if you haven't played the game before, and I'm doing a poor job of explaining the mechanics. But you should have a pretty easy time getting a hold of it if you play the game for yourself. This is a green spiky, is what I'm going to call it. Actually, I'm going to call him a baby spike boy. I don't think any of those work well at all. This is why I'm relying on you guys instead of relying on my own imagination. But yeah, green spike boys, they just chill on ceilings. They can also be on different surfaces, but it's usually a ceiling. And they just shoot little pellets down at you, Mega Man style. It's really the most annoying enemy in this game. If you remember, I talked about one enemy that was used in interesting ways. It's that one. The interesting ways are just making it annoying, though. It's not really too fun to deal with that enemy ever. And I guess that's kind of the point of an enemy. It's there to annoy you. It's there to make your life slightly harder. But it's just more annoying to get these guys, because as you can see right now, I could only barely get him. I am tipping him just barely. And that is one of the lower green spiky boys. So be wary of those guys. They can get pretty annoying. But don't worry about them too much. They're not too bad. So this area always is, I don't know, it throws me off a little bit all the time, because the platforming here is a little bit odd. I don't know, it just doesn't look like these areas are made, or the pattern of these blocks. The pattern of these blocks is what I should be trying to say. It doesn't look like it's made for platforming. Yet, it is. It actually is made for platforming, because you actually have to platform up there in order to get that one Hooligan Sister. You also have to do a bit of a timing challenge in order to get the Ugly Secret Baby. These are things that will be returning a lot. Mighty Switch Force 2 loves to do timing challenges with the launch blocks, where, you have to press the button at the exact right time to make sure that you don't slam into a block and either fall to your death or just fall down and have to do all the platforming again. And that's just something that's pretty common in this game. I don't know how I missed that jump. I'm really, really dumb. But it actually does give me a chance to show off the green spiky boy in his natural habitat of being too high to hit. So that's great. You can just chill up there and, I don't know, do nothing, really. Live there for the rest of your life, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. And that's it. The rest of this level is pretty simple. You saw that it ended right on over here to the left, so there's not too much left here. These furnaces, again, it's kind of like a tutorial level to show off these furnaces, this level that is. And later on, it'll get a lot more challenging. But that's later on. Next time on Mighty Switch Force 2. We'll continue on and do incident number 9 and learn about a few more mechanics, because we're not done having mechanics layered on. No, no, no. We're not gonna have no new mechanics until like the last 2 levels of the game. So, we'll get there eventually. But next time, we'll learn about new mechanics and just kind of continue on. Do 4 more levels, the basic, normal stuff for this series. But again, that's for next time. Until then.